Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym.
Everybody starts with the best case scenario in mind.
Never sell anything to anybody who is not in the market for what you have.
The only reason we work out is to create the opportunity to recover.
And the healthcare provider of the future is the coach.
And this is why you guys need to get paid well, because what you're doing is really, really hard work.
Lachlan, Rowston, welcome to the Active Life podcast again. Welcome back.
Thanks. When did I come on? When was the last time?
It was a while ago. It must have been 3 years ago. I think you came on with Raf.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Feels like a lifetime ago.
Well, what's crazy is, like, I think in 2022, 3 years ago is 1 year ago. Right? Like it's one functional year ago. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Yeah. It's hard to keep track of what happened when and what time frame in the last 24, 36 months.
Well, I can tell. I remember the first time that we met. I don't know if you remember the first time that we met, but the first time that we met, we were at the CrossFit Games. I believe it was 2016, and we were watching some D-ball event where we were in the stadium, and they were throwing D-balls over their shoulder and jumping on a box, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, was that in the stadium, the less popular stadium, or It
was in the tennis stadium.
It's in the tennis stadium. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a good trip. No, actually, you're right. No, I do remember meeting that. That's right. Yeah, it was right at the end of the weekend, wasn't it?
Yes, it was towards the end.
Yeah. Wow, it's funny because, like, that time in my life, as I'm sure it was for you, like, I'm more or less fairly removed from CrossFit these days. Mm-hmm. And so I think of the athlete and the CrossFit, the CrossFit diehard that was me and Raf back then. And we've come a long way. I'd say that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was the same, and I am the same now. When at the time, all of us were in that, it was like, that was the Kool-Aid that we were all chugging. You shake it up, poke a hole in the side, pop the top, and throw it down the throat. And not anymore. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was really your evolution, because I think that what you and Raf have done with both the Mind Muscle Project and Locker Room Gym are just totally ballsy and totally innovative. And I have nothing but respect for you guys. And I want to hear about the process of doing it. You did a really good job of documenting it for the general public as you went through it, which I'm not surprised by at all. But you guys took some risk, and I'm hopeful that it's paying off, but I want to hear all about it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, it definitely felt risky given the circumstances of the last 2 years. So just give people an idea, a little history lesson. So we started off with CrossFit gyms. So 2010, Raf and I found CrossFit. Then 2014, we opened our first CrossFit gym, like most people that are competing in CrossFit attempt to do at some point. And then that quickly led to, by 2017, we had 3 gyms. And so we obviously started the podcast up alongside it the whole time. We had the 3 gyms, and then we rebranded to just, it was CrossFit Creature. We de-affiliated. I think we were the second, potentially even the first gym to de-affiliate in Australia and rebrand. I could be wrong there. I know in Sydney we were definitely one of the first, because some of the major CrossFit gyms at the time were asking us and calling us and be like, "Why'd you de-affiliate? Should I do it? Is it like something I don't know?" And so we made that decision. Last year we packaged up and sold that brand. So it went through a bunch of different changes. Obviously, COVID. Lockdowns, like many gyms, there was some changes in structure and operation. So we changed up a few things there, but then ultimately we just knew that with Locker Room on the horizon, we probably had the idea of it. We were, looking to invest heavily in it probably a year before we sold the other gyms. So we knew that we wanted to take a different path. And the opening of Locker Room, which was we actually signed the lease in March 2020. So literally no, sorry, January 2020, 2 months before we got locked down, the world got locked down. So it's kind of bad timing in some ways, but we knew. So basically, I think once we had signed the lease, we had locker room in our head, the clock was ticking on our other brand, Creature Fitness. We just wanted to get it to a certain point so that when we did package it up and sell it, it was worth a certain dollar figure. And so that's why we didn't sell it straight away. And also we had to prove the locker room concept. So that other brand, Creature Fitness, it paid all our bills. So I couldn't just package up and sell it straight away, because if locker room flopped, then I'd be left with nothing. So I think part of it was like, all right, let's just hold on to Creature. It basically runs itself. We've got a good GM, heaps of staff, operations are pretty smooth. It's minimal time investment each week. Work on this new project, Locker Room, prove that it works, build up the membership base, build up the team there, and then it would make sense to package up and sell the gym. And basically we had to do all that in the last 2 years. So kind of in and out of lockdowns and vaccinations and all that sort of chaos. So yeah, so the I guess in that, there never felt like there was much risk with the gyms that we'd run for the last 8 years, Creature, which, like I said, we sold the end of last year. But it was risky to do locker room, because we basically, what happened in Australia is we signed the lease, and then we went into lockdown, and the government basically said anyone on a commercial lease, I think it was, maybe, no, I could be wrong, I think it was any lease. I think, yeah, any residential or commercial lease can walk, no consequences. Yeah, so we were considering, okay, maybe we'll just pull the pin here. But the only reason why we didn't pull it straight away is because when it first happened, my interpretation of the pandemic was like, oh, this will just blow over in a few months. You know, some people thought this was going to be, this is the apocalypse, and some people thought, it's going to be a couple of weeks. I was more towards the couple of weeks end of the spectrum, and so yeah, I basically invested about $150,000 at that point in the demolition of the gym, or we did, I should say, Ralph and I. And so we had invested some money in the space. We were ripping it up. We were cleaning it up, getting ready to set up the gym during the lockdown. But then what happened was, obviously, it extended out a little bit longer. It was, a lot more serious than I think I initially interpreted. But I don't know if you remember, but Australia basically went pretty quickly to 0 cases. Like, we locked down and it was like 20, 30, 50, and then back to 0. So we had like no cases. That wasn't the case for Melbourne. I think Melbourne made some headlines in America for a while, which is basically the second major city in Australia. They had like insane amount of cases. When I say insane, relative to where you are, I mean, they had 7,000 cases a day, and they were like stage 4 lockdown. You guys had 7,000 cases a minute at one point. Yeah. So relative to the rest of the world, it wasn't a lot, but they basically hit this crazy lockdown as Sydney was coming out of the lockdown. So they're like, we've got 0 cases, everything seems really good, let's start unlocking. Then Melbourne had a massive outbreak, and they started locking down again. And we thought, okay, we sat down at the table and we said, okay, we will pull the pin on locker room if we get a Melbourne situation, which was literally like, okay, one person passed it to the next person, passed to the next person, outbreak again, lockdown, done. Pull the lease, write off the 150K, and then look for the next space and do it again. So we're still keen to do it. We're not going to get rid of the idea altogether, but we're like, okay, let's just see how this thing plays out, and we'll just sit back and we won't force it. And it just never happened. We just never got we never got a case in Sydney for like another probably 12 months. Like, so we basically sat at 0, came out of lockdown, everything was normal, basically had an opportunity. So this is like March, we're looking at basically at March 2021 at this point. We finished the construction, we finished the build out, all the equipment came in. It was actually lucky because we ordered the equipment before the pandemic hit. No, there was no supply chain issues. It was just sitting in a warehouse in Australia, like, a 10-hour truck drive away, just waiting for us to set it up. Because if we had ordered it when everyone else tried to order gym equipment, forget it. Like, we weren't opening your gym. And so we're lucky, a few things dropped into place that were quite lucky. So we opened, and basically, and obviously I can give you some space for some questions on the model and how it's changed and stuff. But yeah, basically we opened the doors officially March 2021. So as of this month, we've been open a year. Within that 12 months, we had our doors fully open for, I would say, probably 6 months without any restrictions. There was probably 4 months in there, fully locked down, doors completely shut. And there's probably a month or so either side of that where we were like operating with restrictions. So fortunately, I'll say that, yeah, it's been a huge success despite all the restrictions. And yeah, we're just continuing to try and grow and push to the next stage.
I appreciate the history lesson.
Thanks. It's been a while.
Yeah. I'm curious, when my first impression, when you started coming out with Locker Room, the first day I saw it, you posted something on LinkedIn. It was like just the empty space. It wasn't even, the boxing ring wasn't in, the lights weren't even in yet. It was just a construction site. Yeah. My initial thought was, wow, are they going to try and keep their 3 CrossFit gyms, or their 3 former CrossFit gyms, which are on the lower end of the market in terms of financial commitment to a member, and try to kick it with Locker Room at the same time? Because that's a bold move, having the super premium version over here and having the masses version over here. I imagine members and staff had similar questions and similar concerns, unless if you were extremely good at communicating up front that was different for people on the ground level than people across the world.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So one of the details probably missed a little bit. So when we went into the lockdown, the initial time in 2020, we basically overhauled the Creature gyms from group fitness, low end of the market, $80 a week, to semi-private groups of 6, individualized training, as almost like a beta test as to like what Locker Room might be like. So not completely, Locker Room would still be a much higher price point and also a much more personalized service. But we wanted Creature to then move to the middle. And we used that, basically the pandemic and the shutdown, as an opportunity to do that. So it's like, all right, great, we're moving back in. Everyone's price is doubled. It's now groups of 6. You get your own program. So we kind of really overhauled the Creature model. And by doing that, because Locker Room had 6 months of construction to go before we could open it, we actually were able to test a lot of different ideas and theories and build out a lot of systems and operations that we would then copy over into Locker Room. But I think the shift to, $160 a week, $170 a week, one-on-one training, individualized program, 6-on-1 training, actually kind of mitigated a little bit of what you're talking about. Definitely from a consumer perspective, it was like, oh, they got quite a premium sort of model. Obviously the facilities look very different, but they're playing a similar model here. Whereas that was on the consumer and I guess the market end, but on the employee side, on the team side, there was some difficult moments there. What was interesting was the people that initially put their hand up for Locker Room said, yeah, I want to come across, I want to do Locker Room, I want to be a part of that future. They all stuck with group fitness. I think they all realized when they moved into Locker Room, it's nothing like their skill sets that they developed for group fitness, nothing like what you do with personal training. Bringing super high energy and screaming at people in cardio sessions is like a way different skill set to like using force decks and, analyzing data and looking at blood work and then building out supplement protocols. Like it's almost, you would be doing yourself a disservice if you were too energetic and brought too much energy to like a 2-on-1 personal training session. Like people would just, you're too much. It doesn't fit.
Well, I mean, you just gave me 7,000 questions that I want to ask you. The first one, though, is you doubled your membership rate at Creature. What did that do to your membership volume?
So we're in fairly affluent areas already, but basically it halved our membership base. But because we doubled the price, our top line revenue fades fairly stable. But yeah, we basically, because it was like, all right, so everyone's like, heaps of people lost their job. There's loads of uncertainty in the country. Like, you've done us a mad favor by like still paying us during the lockdown and still training with us online. And just as a way of saying thank you, let me double the price and change love about the gym. And so we had about half the members walk, and then the best half stayed. And they took a chance. They're like, all right, well, let's see if these boys are right. They want more of my money. They said it's going to be better. and it turned out to be better in the end. So
Did you just make like an announcement on the blog, or did you like send an email out saying, hey, by the way, the model is changing, prices are going to double, stay or not? What was that process like?
It wasn't that crude. No, we got every coach to call their clients.
Okay.
So each coach was on some clients who built out a script. We did some like role playing, some practicing. And then we just said, go call everyone. It was a rough 2 weeks of calls, I can tell you.
I'm sure.
Rough 2 weeks of call.
Well, I'm sure because it becomes the first person you call, it's a little bit surprising to them, but they're like, oh, all right. And then the next thing that they do the second they hang up is text somebody else. Did you hear? And the somebody else is like, no, hear what? And now when you're having the call, they're a different level of prepared for that call, different kind of prepared, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we got through those calls. Somehow I managed to get out of the calls. So I didn't actually make any of the calls. But all my staff did, and perhaps did as well. So that was a rough week of calls. But yeah, I think that a lot of the best clients stayed. It was surprising who stayed and who went. Some clients, ended up, despite having, no affordability issue, just didn't like the format. So it was a bit of a mix. And then some people who like it was stretching them financially, they much preferred the format. So it was an interesting change. Ultimately, the staff didn't mind it too much, but what I think I definitely found by going more personalized, smaller groups, higher price point, is you realize you need to ask more from your staff. They're now you're offering a totally different service, and so some of our more casual staff and some of our more junior staff that they're kind of athletes, they kind of cruise in, they still live at home, they make a little bit of a side wage or whatever. They were out pretty quickly because we were asking so much of them. We're sitting down, we're going to do this, you need more on the service, blah, blah, blah. Like, we'll pay you more, but they just weren't interested. So it went from more of a casual job, a place you could kind of just, like a lot of CrossFit gyms, to no, this is like a serious enterprise that you need to actually work it.
And if I understand correctly, the change, you didn't just say, okay, it's 6-on-1, double the price now. What you did was you went from, here's the program written for the best, scaled for the rest. And I'm oversimplifying what you did at Creature prior to the flip. And then you went to, it's 6-on-1, and we have multiple different tracks, and you're going to go on the track that is a best fit for you. And then we're going to tweak the track to make it even more individualized for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah, build out 15 to 16 general templates, and then customize it in TrueCoach. Everyone gets your TrueCoach out before a session, and then we've built a few, and then we've made adjustments based on injuries. Right.
So you were able to tell people, look, in the past we were trying to get all of you to the average. Now we can give you much more specifically what you're looking for, which is going to help you get to your goals more quickly.
Correct. And the beautiful thing about individualized program for anyone who does group fitness is like you basically never have a programming issue again, because if anyone wants anything, done, change it. If anyone can't do anything, done, change it. And they never feel like, fuck, I have to go to this gym and scale, or I can't do this, or like, man, I really want to hit biceps today, but I feel weird hitting it after class by myself. Because, as much as we can say as coaches and gym owners, oh no, it's fine. If you come into back injury, we'll just sub everything for it. From a consumer perspective, they know that makes sense. They just don't want to be the person to come in and not do deadlifts and do some, banded glute walk while everyone else is doing deadlifts. So it works in theory, and we get it as coaches, but how it plays out, the consumer doesn't enjoy it.
Yeah, it's almost like not being in the tribe anymore.
Yeah.
I talk about this all the time with the gyms that we work with. Yes, you can scale for anybody. Yes. But it's not cool to scale. Like no one walks in the gym and they're like, yo, what's up, dude? Yeah, I'm going to scale everything today and slay it. Nobody says that. So when you moved to 6-on-1, because we're going to move from 6-on-1 to 2-on-1 in a moment here, was the group element gone completely? Was it all individual design at that point?
It was all individual design for the strength portion of the workout, and then the conditioning was done as a group.
Got it.
And we simplified the conditioning a lot. So we went from, toes to bar and deadlift, that sort of stuff, and it went to like literally just air bikes, ski ergs, rowers, burpees, step ups. Like that's pretty much it. Maybe some dead ball stuff, maybe some kettlebell stuff.
Right. So it was kind of the mix of individualized template that feels completely custom into a group conditioning piece, so you get your community part as well. And that's what the membership was now.
Yes.
That's very similar to what we're having the gyms that we work with move towards as well. What was retention like on that?
So the retention side, churn rate went from about, I want to say it was probably around, it was pretty good for a group fitness gym. It was probably around 7%, 6.5%, 7%, and it went down to about 5%. So we reduced churn by 1.5%, 2%, which I think for a gym that was already had retention systems in place, already had like green, amber, red client movement, calls, texts, retention emails, like a full system built out. So we had like good retention strategies from a group gym perspective already. So to be able to improve on that, I think it definitely helped. I mean, really, you're just getting a client that's also more invested. They're paying more, they're more invested. They want to see results. They have an individual plan, so they feel like, they have some accountability around that. So I think a few different factors are at play, but definitely improve the retention strategy. And to give you an idea, the churn rate for after a year of operating in locker room is around like 2.5%, 3%.
Well, so let's talk about locker room now, because you sold that off, and congratulations on that. Anyone who's in the gym business knows that's a feat in itself. And now you move into locker room, which the model of locker room, if I understand it correctly, is personal training done 2-on-1. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there more to it that I'm not speaking to?
Yes. Hold on, John. Have you lost me on the microphone?
No, I got you. You sound great. You sound glorious.
Okay. So the 2-on-1 personal training, we originally started open locker room was 3-on-1 personal training, but when we went into our second lockdown, we actually moved to, the reason that we got out of personal training was because, out of 3-on-1 personal training is because we basically we were forced to train outside, and it had to be 1-on-1. And a couple of things happened in that scenario. Basically what we did, we set up stations. So we had like, all right, here's our strength station, like it was in the gym. We'll train you 1-on-1 here. So we had all the trainers outside training clients 1-on-1. And then we'd move them over to the cardio section, but we wouldn't coach them. So it was like, all right, we had like 3 or 4 people in a group just doing cardio on like their cardio stations. We realized 2 things from that. We realized, 1-on-1 is actually better. It's not quite as good. It's not quite as good as 3-on-1, but in some ways it was a lot better. Like there wasn't as much atmosphere as 3-on-1, but what the clients were getting in terms of that really personalized service that we promised them from the beginning, it was way better and it was way easier to manage. But we didn't want to go to straight 1-on-1 because the margins aren't there. The conversation does get a bit dead after a while. It's too hard to scale with too many trainers. So we're like 2-on-1 is the perfect sweet spot. So it allowed us to keep the personal training feel, because we were doing 3-on-1 in the gym for a few months and just didn't quite feel personal enough. It was still a bit too chaotic with 3 programs going at the same time. This person's at this level, this person's at that level, this person knows what they're doing. The coach is still running around. They're not really giving quite the service we wanted. So 2-on-1 actually ended up being the perfect kind of ratio for us. And then the second thing we realized is people actually, if you keep cardio really simple, you put it on a screen, they don't need a coach. They need someone there screaming at them. If they got a couple of their buddies with them, that's enough. And these guys that train the gym, they're nothing like a CrossFit athlete. They're so far from, the people that we used to train, that if you get them on a bike, like literally just get them on a bike, doing intervals on a bike, like they feel like it's the hardest workout they've done, all year. So we're down to very, very minimal bodyweight movements, couple of core movements, and just air runners, ski ergs, and bikes. And that's the conditioning. And then they're happy to do it.
So first of all, what I find, at least as I'm getting older, and I don't consider myself old yet, but I'm 38. So we're on our way, right? I don't, like, I'm looking at the picture of, I can tell that that's, Tupac on the top left on my screen. And then if I'm not mistaken, that's Brad Pitt from Fight Club next to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the kind of work I would have to do to get back into the kind of shape as if I ever looked like Brad Pitt in that picture. But you follow me to get
Wait,
close.
this picture here?
Yeah.
No, that's Rich Froning.
Ah, it's Rich Froning. Okay. Well, great.
That's a compliment for Brad Pitt.
Even harder. Yeah. That's Brad Pitt on some extra. to get back to that kind of condition, like even Brad Pitt in Fight Club, would be so strenuous for me. It would take so much commitment and sacrifice to get there that it would likely be unsustainable for me to stay there. And at age 38, I don't care how much I can clean. I don't care how many muscle ups I can do in a row. None of that stuff is important to me. What's that?
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I showed up at Locker Room and you put me on a cardio circuit, yeah, that's fucking hard. And it's hard enough. I don't need more than that. But so my question to you about that is, when it's 2-on-1, do two people have to, like, are they buddies and they're coming together every time? Or is it, I'm coming at 7:00 today and the person who is also coming at 7:00 today is Brad and we happen to be paired up today?
Yeah, the latter. Yeah, I mean, in theory, we thought, okay, well, if there's like two training partners that are really getting along, they'll like always book the same sessions together and do the same sessions. It's just not really how it played out. These guys, their schedules are so busy. Like we target specifically guys that either own their business, they have ownership, or they're at the executive level of their company. Their time is, and their attention and energy is very split. So they just kind of make it in when they can. And most guys, they do train at a similar time every day. So they kind of become buddies at that time anyway. And
you're charging, if I'm not mistaken, if it's okay to discuss pricing before I even bring it up. You're at $1,000 a month, yes?
No, we're at, so you might have to do the conversion to US dollars for me, but I guess 70% of what, or roughly 75% of whatever the numbers I throw out here. So I guess that would be, pretty close. We're about 1,500 a month Australian. So that would be,
so like
1150. 1,200, 11, 1,200 a month. Yeah, it is though. The difference is it's paid up front for 6 months or 12 months. That's our minimum. That's our entry level price. So some guys pay up to, in US dollars, $2,000.
What are they getting for that?
So basically how we do it is we have like the core package, which is you can book as many sessions as you want. The good thing about collecting data in your business, which is why I would encourage everyone to collect data, is, I used to be against offering unlimited, but with this clientele, you offer unlimited, and usually what happens is they end up coming 2 to 3 times a week. So it seems like more value, but you can pretty accurately predict how often they'll use their membership.
And if you tell them they can only come once or twice, they might be angry with you.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 to 3 times a week, and then they're so they're on unlimited training, and then unlimited training, and then basically they can access the gym at any time, so they can use it like a Globo gym, so they can swipe and tap in at any time. That really gets used a bit more on Saturdays than anything else. So Saturdays is the real time that gets used. And then on the other, so basically when they start in the initial 30 days, they've got like some onboarding stuff and some assessment stuff that kind of gets included with a 30-day like individualized nutrition plan. But then they can add stuff into it. So that initial kind of 1,100-1,200 USD a month, that covers like basically all your training. Now, if you want to add a little bit of nutrition, and where we upsell people is we upsell them to, they get nutrition coaching long term. So for the rest of the program, that's probably the most expensive upsell. Then medical work. So we do like blood panels, urine analysis, DEXA scans, metabolic tests. We use all that data. And then we also use what's it called, the whip strap. So they can buy 6 months of the whip strap as well. We can use that data. And then we have some convenience as well. So they can like have priority booking. So which means rather than book through the app, we can just like lock them into a time slot every day. So they can like basically skip the line. They can pay for that. And we have laundry service as well. They can also pay for. So I've added a few conveniences in there as well they can add on to. So if they added all that together, they'd be at about 2,000 USD a month.
And if I'm not mistaken, you have a 100 member cap.
Yes.
So
yes,
have you seen that is leading to any kind of scarcity, urgency of people coming in to join because they want to get in before that cap is hit?
Not really. Not really. Yeah, I mean, we've only got about 40 spots left anyway at this point. But it doesn't, I think because the price point is so high, it doesn't actually affect people's urgency. You know, they're like, yeah, great, I really want to get in here, but it's also really fucking expensive. So like, I'm not rushing to spend the money. I think once we're full,
right,
and we can say to people, hey, like, we literally have this one spot open. If you don't take it, I'm going to give it to the next person. Then potentially the urgency would be there, but it hasn't played out how we wanted to. So we use urgency in some different ways in the sale process.
Well, how have you marketed this so that people who really are just not in the ballpark for what this needs to cost aren't showing up, spending the whole consult time with you, and then being like, it costs what? The gym down the block is $29 and the CrossFit gym is $180. What do you mean you're $1,500 Australian a month? How do you avoid filling your inbound schedule with people like that?
So, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that the issue with all this, the price competitiveness in the market is most people. So yeah, it's a hard question to answer. But most people, if they value it in their budget enough, like they'll make the room and they'll make the time to pay for it. You know, the interesting part about bringing these types of clients in and selling to it is there is actually quite a variation in how much money these clients make, which I think surprises people. So like some clients, for example, they make, let's call it $500,000, right, a year. And they might be at the executive level of their company, but then other guys, they're billionaires essentially. They probably don't have $1 billion liquid, but they've, have $1 billion of their assets, right? But it's the budget and the value that people have put aside for fitness is really what matters at the end of the day, and how big their pain is, how ready they are to spend on that to fix that pain, I think is a large dictator of how easily someone will spend the money. So I know I didn't really answer your question, but that's kind of the psychology that we've noticed about, and really it just applies universally. People that don't have much money, you'd be surprised what they're spending on just because they value that service or that product.
Sure, but I mean, $500,000 is not much money, right? There are people who I imagine most of the members at Creature weren't earning $500,000 a year as a base, and there were probably some people who were earning 100,000, 200,000 who were coming to Creature, who in their little pocket of society were fairly affluent. And then there's another level of affluence, which we all understand. Then there's a level after that, and it just, it becomes more and more unreal, insane as numbers start to climb. Do you still get the people walking in who maybe would have been a Creature member who say, I want to check this out, I want to see what this is, and then you talk to them about what it actually looks like, and they're like, oh, this is not for me?
I would say we probably turn away 95% of people.
Interesting. I want to hear more about that.
But not in person, over the phone.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so like we have a pre-qual process, which I think any sales process should have, where you just qualify people on the phone so you don't waste your time face to face. But I will start the call, like any other call. But then I'll say, look, before I get into the services and the memberships and the pricing, I just want to let you know, like 95% of people that I get on the phone call with is just not a good fit for this gym for loads of different reasons. We're very specific, and we built it that way on purpose. And then I'll ask them, what do you do professionally? Can you give me an idea of like what you're responsible for in your career and your company? And then can you give me an idea of like, what you're after? Like, what are you doing now? What are you after? And by the time I get those answers, it's not that, I'm trying to be exclusive. I just know for sure that someone's just not going to pay for the service I'm offering. So if someone comes in and says, oh, I'm the director of a company, but I train 5 days a week, and, I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm looking for something, a little bit different, some more accountability, I'll just say, look, it's not really for you. I'm going to charge you a shitload of money, and you already train, and it'll be different, and you'll find some value, and it'll be some cool people, but you're not gonna see the value like someone who's like, I'm really overweight, I suck at going to the gym, I got no time on my hands, like all the problems that we were trying to solve for with these executives. if someone doesn't have enough of those pain points, I just know that I can't get them over the line. It's just too much. They won't see the value there.
So it sounds like by the time somebody actually ends up coming into Locker Room, you're having a sales conversation not around money, but around values. Is this something that they value doing? Is it an experience that they value having? And the money is just, I mean, yeah, look, this is what it costs to have this service, and you're past it already.
Yeah, and like one thing that we do every single time, we're very clear on is like, hey, so the next step is obviously to book a consultation. And I've given them the price. We use weekly prices in Australia. So we'll say, it's 250 to 400 a week. Like, I need to know that this is in your budget. I need to know this is something you can afford. Like, please, let's not waste each other's time if you don't plan on spending this much money. So tell me, like, is this in your budget or not? And yeah, at that point, most people will say yes or no. But the majority of people will say no, it's not. And then if they say yes, they're coming into the consultation. They know the services. I know their problems. They know the price, and I tell them, like, look, we're going to go through everything. I'm going to build a package for you, and then I'm going to ask you to, place a deposit on the membership to get started. And then, 1 in 10 people in person won't sign up.
1 in 10 will not, meaning 9 out of 10 people who show up sign up. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
So there's one of the things that you have obviously gotten over or never had that I hear from a lot of people when we talk to them about building a more premium model is the idea that it's not about the money. It's about not being able to service the people who can't afford that level of service that I feel bad about. That's what they'll tell me. And my answer to that always starts with the idea that, like, innovation always starts unaffordably for most people. And it can become more affordable over time as the systems that are developed at the top with very few people matriculate down and become more scalable. But if you ever want to be able to impact people in a way that you can't right now, it has to start on an innovation level that is, unfortunately, for many people, unattainable financially. How do you deal with, at all, if you had it, the conflict of, 90% of our members at Creature wouldn't be able to come here?
Yeah, I think you're probably using the example of Creature as like the mass market, the mass.
I know Creature was above the mass market, but yes, I'm using it so that the person listening can picture their gym that it is today and move to a business that they put $150,000 of renovation into before they sign up the first member, who they're going to charge, $1,200 a month US, and they can't imagine even one of those people exist.
Yeah. Yeah, $150,000 just to clean out the space, and then another $500,000 to build the space. So well, it wasn't a cheap fit out. It's interesting. It is definitely I guess a more philosophical question. I think, really, because from a business perspective, everything's better. Make way more money, employ more people, way more profits in the business, much better business model. So it's not really a matter of like, you got to access the mass market to like have a better business. That's definitely not the case. But from a philosophical perspective, it's like, well, if you're in the health and fitness industry and like your mission is to like help people, why are you going after like the elite in society, the high net worths? I think, first of all, there's definitely a misconception about what these people are like. If anything, they are the human beings that you want to spend the most time with, because in order to achieve the level of success that some of these people have achieved, granted, there is some aggressive tactics that need to be used in business at a very high level when you're dealing with tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. That's kind of just part of the game. But in order to lead teams of 100 people, to build companies that people want to get behind and work for, you have to be a likable person. You have to be someone that people get along with, that people care about and want to go work for. So they're actually some of the best people I've ever met in my life, which I didn't really have a misconception about it, but I know a lot of people do, and it's really not the case. People that have a lot of money. Obviously, there are con men out there. There are people who rip people off, and we just don't have those people at the gym. Then there's always going to be those people on every level, at any income level. But yeah, I think that there shouldn't be a misconception here that these are bad people, or because we got that, like some of the articles that we posted or that we got posted in magazines we featured in, the comment sections were like, oh, another private club for wankers to get together and jerk off about how much money they have. And, that would get like 150, upvotes or whatever. So the public's perception of what we do a little bit is, I think misconstrued, but I don't feel anymore, to come back to your question, I don't feel anymore I need to feel like I have to serve the mass market, the general public, just because I've realized over time in business is that it's hard to go after everyone. It's hard to help everyone. Maybe in the future, when I have more resources and more time, I might start a different venture where I can sell to the mass market. But just for now, in our niche, I just have to focus on helping my niche. And like, I just can't dedicate too much time to helping more people, because that's just not the business I've chosen for now. And it doesn't mean I don't want to. It just means commercially, I just only have 24 hours in the day, and I just got to focus on what's working right now.
Well, I think something that doesn't get considered, there's two things here. Number one is, you're right. There's a lot of thought that like, oh, there's another high-end club for wankers to go jerk each other off and talk about how much money they have. And that's the kind of mindset, in my estimation, that keeps somebody from ever having any version of financial success. Forget about being a billionaire, being someone who makes $500,000 a year. When you resent somebody for being successful without even knowing that person, and make assumptions about what they had to do to become successful that you associate as a negative, you prohibit yourself from ever becoming successful because you view success as a negative thing. And I think that you spoke to that very well, that, knowing these people who are, by all measures of financial means, successful, they're good people. And they're the people you want to learn from and be around. Number two is, the person who owns the company or leads the company has the most influence in the company. And the more people who are in the company, the more likely it is that person is making more money, which means they have more influence over more people. And if they come to you and you change their life, and they didn't used to value healthy food, they didn't used to value, personal time or sleep or any of this, they might put the employee of the month on the website, on the wall of the person who just grinded it out from beginning to end and put their health aside. But now, because you at Locker Room have helped them see that that's not a healthy way to live, and that person's not going to sustain, and they don't represent your company the way that you want to be represented, they'll start influencing people to live differently, which means that you don't only influence the person who comes to your gym. You influence everybody who they influence, Lachlan.
That's it's funny you said that, because that is actually the initial pitch that I would tell people about the broader influence when they ask that same question. I honestly think I just forgot, just being so in it at the moment. But yeah, you're right. That was what we had always envisioned, that someone who's responsible for 100 employees, if we can help them value health and fitness more, then hopefully that'll have a trickle down effect into their customer base or their staff base.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for you and Raf for biting off this size of a chew and taking the chance that you took on servicing this kind of an audience, especially in today's day and age. Because right now there's never been more social pressure to make everybody happy than there's ever been before. It's, from gender to race to financial class to you name it, especially in the United States. I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but here there's a lot of tiptoeing to avoid making anybody upset. And what you are doing is saying, I understand your priorities and I don't necessarily share them. These are our priorities. This is what we want to do really well, and we're going to do it extremely well. And I give you a ton of credit for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I definitely know the social landscape in America is much more fragile than what it is here in Australia. But, we see a lot of it, we hear a lot of it, and obviously we have somewhat of a trickle down effect. But I can appreciate that, in where you're at right now, it's probably a lot different and potentially a lot riskier from a commercial standpoint to do something like we've done. But, it's working for now. And I think that we're just going to work hard from a marketing perspective, a branding perspective, to position ourselves in a way that helps to fight that misconception, to humanize the people in there and show that they're just, ordinary people that are trying to do better for themselves.
Well, I think it also affords you the opportunity to show people that you can coach for a career. There's enough money here that you can come work here and make a living. The trade-off is you have to be great. You don't get to mail it in. You have to show up and do the work effectively on a regular basis, or people paying us $1,200 US a month are going to say, what the fuck are you charging me $1,200 a month US for? This guy just showed up in his knee sleeves, his t-shirt sweaty from the workout that he just did. He checked his stock portfolio before he worked out with me. He wasn't prepared. What is this?
Yeah. No, the whole level of the team has lifted. The type of staff that we bring in now has completely lifted. The podcast has obviously helped with that as we've documented the journey of the gym and what we're doing. It's meant that the people that are intrigued and want to be a part of what we're doing, really want to be a part of what we're doing. Whereas before, it's like, oh, the guys at the podcast, they got this, group fitness gym, it's kind of cool. But there was no particular urge because we weren't doing anything, particularly unique or different to come work for us. But now with Locker Room, people feel like the team that's with us feel like, all right, we're at the start of something big here. Let's make sure we do a good job. Let's make sure we lift our game. This is like my career move that I've always wanted to make. Mm-hmm. So I can tell that right now, the standard of the person that we're bringing on and the culture that we're building is worlds apart from what we had before.
Is the next Locker Room going to open in Melbourne, Brisbane, or New York?
That's good. That's the golden question. We try to answer that question somewhat each month at our directors meeting as we start, hitting different numbers. So I can't say for sure. I think the most likely move, if we're going to go to a different city, would be Melbourne. That would most likely be the first move, I got to say. And then we may open another one or a bigger one potentially. We're not 100% set on the model that we want to cut, copy, and paste out yet. So we've still got time to develop that in terms of how many square meters is it, how do we space it out, how many staff does it take, what's the revenue cap on a location. So we're not 100% sure there yet. I think we want to go a slightly bigger location than we have now. I don't know what the conversion is to square feet, but it's
about 9.
We're at 300 square meters. 9?
Yeah, so it's 2,700 square feet.
Okay, so yeah, we're probably we're trying to go and do double that at the next site.
Why?
Why? Well, so I think it's the revenue cap's not high enough. So it's so like once the model is in and the system is working, our operations are so smooth and it's so well laid out that it's just putting the first 100 in and then the second 100 in. It's not double as hard. It's it's easier if anything. It gets easier because the operations, the systems are there, the staff there. So
your fixed costs are low enough that adding new members and the variable cost of it, the margin just improves. Dramatically.
So rather than stop it, at say $2.5 million USD cap for a location, we double it. But you double the revenue, but you 4x the profit of a location, which obviously gives you more opportunities to hire different staff and do different things and, just build a better business. So yeah, potentially. And then, if you do 2 of those, you've got a $10 million company just with 2 locations, which is pretty sizable. So that's the plan. That appears to be the most likely plan moving forward over the next 18 months. But if we do move internationally, which is definitely a possibility, we would not come to North America probably for some time. We'd actually go after the Asian market and the Middle Eastern market because there's definitely a demand for this type of product there and service because obviously a lot of wealth there, a lot of high net worths. But equally, I think there's also there's just also a lot less competition. Whereas like North America, you guys are just so competitive. And so it's not until, if you're coming into North America, you better be coming in like locked and loaded, investors, multiple locations, heaps of know-how. You want local ground knowledge. And I think to be successful in that market, you need as many resources as possible. And I think building that up in other cities before we come to North America is probably the smart thing to do.
I'm with you. So I guess final question, because I want to be respectful of your time here, is one of the things that I admire most about what you and Raf are doing is that it's still you and Raf doing it. And you guys have done a lot of stuff together where it's clear that you've needed to have important conversations around the vision that you have for your own lives and your business and, well, frankly, your businesses together. And I'm certain that you guys have argued over things in the past, because when you care about things, you argue about things. What advice do you have for people out there who are partnered with somebody right now in business A, who see themselves transitioning to business B or business C or business D down the line and have no idea how to bring their partner into it with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, business relationships and partnerships, I think I'm very blessed that I found someone who is like very opposite to me, but also very aligned to me in enough ways. So I think the magic of business partnerships is that your skill sets are very, very opposite, but your personalities meet in the middle enough so that you get along and you really respect each other. So, because I think if you're too far opposite and there's no intersecting points, you just argue on everything because you see through the world so differently that you just can't align on anything. Whereas I think and we've done personality testings, we spent, time together on the road, traveling in the US and sleeping, head to toe in the same bed in a motel. So we've pushed our relationship to all the extremes, and I've done stupid shit that I regret. He's done stupid shit that he regrets. I think we just got very early on into personal development, Raf and I. So we realized that we had to have uncomfortable conversations with each other early if we weren't happy with how we were doing things. And it's funny you say that, because we agreed that this year we didn't really do it the last 2 years because of all the ups and downs been happening, but we go on like a 6 monthly annual, we're not really sure, maybe 6 months, every 12 months director's retreat. So we just go away, and what we really hash over is like, where are you at personally? Like what do you want to do with your life? How much money do you want to earn? Where do you want to live? What goals do you have? Like all unrelated to the business. And then we want to make sure that those personal goals are in alignment with where we want to go with the business. So it's all personal stuff for, a day and a half sitting together on the beach, just figuring out what we want from our lives, and then come back. Okay, does it still align with the direction of the business? Because, at one point I said to him, I want to live overseas. I want to do X, Y, Z. I had some stuff that I was like, not midlife crisis, but I was like, oh, I really want to do this. And then those things change. And I think if you don't communicate those changes, when I told him that thing, I would actually love to live, overseas for 6 months, in whatever, California. He's got that in his head, thinking that I'm still thinking that 12 months later, whereas I changed that in my head. But if you don't meet to have that conversation again, because he's like, well, fuck, I don't know if my business partner still wants to be here. Am I building something that he's about to walk away from in 6 months? And then you meet up in 12 months, you go, oh yeah, that I did. I was just like a phase for a month. No, I got over it. And so, but you'd be surprised if you don't have those conversations and you drop a little thing about, I'm thinking about having my first kid, or I'm thinking about, moving to a different suburb or whatever. Like, you don't really know what's in each other's head, because you always talk about business, but you don't really talk about the personal life stuff. So I think you got to make space, like you brought up, to have the personal conversations about what you're doing with your life and where you want to live and when you want to get married and what, if you want to buy houses and all this sort of stuff. Because if someone just wants to like rent for the rest of their lives and chill out and keep a simple life, they're going to have very different business objectives to someone who's like, no, I want to have like a $50 million home on the cliff outlooking the water. And like, you just got to find that balance there. So I know that didn't really answer your question, but to come back to like how you would have that conversation with someone that you want to do something different to them, I would just like sit down and have that personal conversation. Hey, what's everything you want to do in your life in the next 3 years? What's everything I want to do? Does the business make sense anymore? Because like that, once you bring up what you want to do personally and they want to do personally, that the answer is going to appear itself. It's, you're going to find out very quickly whether or not, you're aligned anymore and the business makes sense.
Lachlan, Rowston, I'm telling you, I could not respect what you and Raf are doing any more than I do. I couldn't be rooting any harder for you guys to be successful. I love watching it from the other corner of the world, right? I mean, where we stand upright, you guys are upside down, whether you realize that or not. You know, I really love watching it, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to hang out with you guys again when you're back in the US, or if I can ever get my ass out to Australia, I would love to do that too. But I would love to do this again with you in a few months, see where Locker Room has grown to. I'm fascinated by it, and I want to make sure people can find you. So where do they go to do that?
So the best place to do that, I reckon, just keep following the podcast, the Mind Muscle Project. We're doing a big push for YouTube this year. So we've hired a few new staff members. Like, sole job is to do YouTube. So we will be putting out more video content there. It's the same with the Mind Muscle Project. And, I'll just leave the audience with saying the same thing that you said to me. Like, we always follow what you do, Sean, and we appreciate, all the changes you're trying to make and the evolution that you've been through. And I think it was great. I think it's interesting because we've met so many people in the US through the podcast, and there's like still very few that we still speak to this day. In fact, I would say, count them on one hand, and you're definitely one of them. So I think it just speaks to, like, we're on a very similar path, very similar mission. We like to surround ourselves with, like, great entrepreneurs and people that are high energy and passionate. And that's why we still hang out with you and still speak to you and still have time for you, because everyone else has different agendas and fades away, and they're just not as aligned. So no, we feel very much the same way with you.
Well, thank you. Right on the other side of my camera over here is a big black and white book that says the Training Journal on the side with your name right next to it and his name right next to it. It's right on the bookshelf.
I remember that.
I bet you do. Lachie,
You're in that.
What's that? I know I'm in it. Wait, you kept it because you're on it? No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you're busy. Your studio is amazing, and looking forward to following the journey, man.
Thanks, Sean.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Remember, if you feel inspired by our vision to humanize the healthcare industry, professionalize the fitness industry, and empower individuals to live their lives, to reclaim their physical freedom, to develop careers, helping people reclaim their physical freedom, all you need to do is head to activelifeprofessional.com, find the appropriate link that represents you, and get in contact. We'll see you there. Turn pro.